Haha, making a video. Yes, very quiet kind of day, a little bit gray and all that kind of stuff, but very quiet. Anyway, kind of nervy and buggy and all that kind of shit, but doing my duty. So anyway, the thought of the day is, I saw a Professor Anton video, just horrible. He talks about determinism, right? And he goes through this whole thing, how it's ludicrous to be a determinist. And then he points out all these irrational reasons, like, what about when you do something where you think about it and then you don't do it? Like thinking wouldn't be part of the determinism. And then in the end, he just basically says, well, I'm not saying there's something else, essentially, which is just, oh, come on, you wasted all my time. I'm not describing any other mechanism of, influence besides matter and energy. Okay, then why'd you waste my time with this? Then why are you not a determinist? Because matter and energy is determinism, buddy. But I guess he obviously thinks there's something not mechanical in how our brain works, but it's not magical. So it's not mechanical, but it's not magical. I don't know what that would be. It's Bugs Bunny. Anyway, speaking of Bugs Bunny, that poker-faced moron is in some sort of comment argument with some other people. One of my videos, he's always arguing that abiogenesis has been proven a fraud or something, and all these just bold claims of religion. But it just brings up this complexity argument. He's doing the creationist truther kind of crap that, well, the sun is magically just the right distance away, and the earth is magically made out of the right elements, and everything's magic. And you're just like, no, this is just the way it functions. Diamonds are a rare form of carbon, not an abundant form of carbon, because the circumstances that create diamonds are complicated. You have to have the right amount of pressure and heat, and there has to be a small enough amount of carbon isolated and all this kind of stuff. And it only happens under those conditions. And life only happens on planets that are going to have stable conditions, because active chemistry, especially active water chemistry, can only take place in those conditions. A certain temperature range is conducive to the most active chemistry for different elements. They become most active. And for carbon, hydrogen, hydrocarbon style molecules, we're in that range of activity. But most specifically, the elemental nature of the DNA molecule, I guess, would be the significant chemistry, that needs to exist. But anyway, so it's just this idea of complexity is interesting, because these people, even Professor Anton, kind of had make this face like, where'd the complexity come from? Like somehow you can't explain complexity arising out of a simple circumstance. And I think they know better, but they just don't want to think better. I mean, they just don't want to think about how the real world works and how things get created and how they break down. So I think that's an interesting part of this, because obviously the making mechanism has to exist in the breaking mechanism, and also because then you just have a bunch of rigid stuff that end up in one form if there wasn't something that forced it to break and get remade. And so it's like this attraction-repulsion mechanism, positive, negative. And again, I'll argue there's always only one force, the negative one, unfortunately for us. But anyway, so this dynamic of complexity, though, is like you could just take, remember those barrel of monkeys, right? So it was just a plastic monkey that was S-shaped, so it had a hook on each arm, an arm and a leg was hooked. And so you could connect them, and you could, it's almost like pickup sticks you could, you just throw the monkeys down and try to pick up the most monkeys by picking up one monkey or some kind of bullshit like that. But because they would interlock, and you try to get the most monkeys as possible. Something like that. And so here you have a very simple mechanism, and it can create complex chains. And so you could imagine you could throw these monkeys, zillions of them, in a blender of some kind and stir them around, and that, eventually you could stir yourself the letter A and the letter B. You could go through the whole alphabet and all the numbers, and you could create language. I'm not saying you'd create a lot of great words, but you can imagine that the monkeys wouldn't need a typewriter, that out of a barrel of monkeys you could probably make some words over enough time. But again, there has to be a mechanism that disconnects the monkeys, to make the system liberal enough to go through the permutations to make something new possible. So that's sort of like in the destruction of stars. All the energy is released again to start all over again in a new form with a lot of complex, heavy matter with it. But, it releases a tiny amount of matter compared to the amount of energy. But, still significant. And we can sort of understand that in a lot of systems, that as soon as they get too complicated, failure starts leaking in. You could even say like the space shuttle was just a little bit too complicated. Because it's, failure just becomes inevitable because it has so many moving parts that can't be made perfectly reliable. And you just magnify the imperfection probabilities with each addition of complexity, with each addition of an element of potential failure. And but you can think of physical limitations. I could build a ladder and use it as a bridge, but as soon as my distance goes beyond the tolerances, the ladder will fail. And all kinds of systems fail. They break down. Even tornadoes, lots of things break down when they get too big. They consume themselves in some way, some erraticacy, some vibration, just knocks them apart because the leverage becomes too powerful. They have to split in half, or they have to do something, so they're just too big. Water droplets, lots of things have physical limitations, and they'll break down, they'll divide, if they go beyond the tolerances of the mechanical systems holding them together. So anyway, that's the part of the mechanism that breaks things down. I guess I really wanted to talk about the things that build them up. And that's where, it's all just to being able to have enough imagination to imagine how many times these dice are being rolled. So I could throw Yahtzee dice, I'll use this example, but I'll use it again, and have all the 5 dice stack on top of each other. Now, the odds of that happening are, impossible to calculate, I think. I don't know if we have a way to do that, just because it's so, it would so depend on how the experiment is conducted, because you could say it's impossible by bouncing dice, rolling dice from a low trajectory. It wouldn't even be possible, because there'd be no circumstance in which the mechanics could ever get that last dice high enough in the air, to land on the other dice, let alone stay there. But anyway, so I'm just saying that's, depending on the circumstances of the experiment, you could say that would be impossible. It would be a pig flying, a naturally, genetically accurate pig thing. Anyway, but I mean, if I do it, and you look at it, you'll say, wow, that's, it's God must have done it kind of thing. I mean, if you saw it in nature, you'd say God did it, because it's impossible. Can't happen. But things can happen that are very unusual, and they can be very, but they're not unusual to scale. So I guess that's the argument you got to understand, is the scale. Again, diamonds aren't unusual in the sense that they are so, you can go dig some up, but they're unusual in terms of their percentage of carbon. They're unusual, and they might be non-existent on other planets because some elemental circumstance of the incubator of diamond might be missing. I don't know exactly it might require some other elements to be part of the furnace to create a diamond. But certainly you could argue that some sort of shape or something else, the Nixon potato, there's lots of things out there that are very unusual, and looking at them, they'd say there's too much complexity for the mechanism that created it, but all the mechanism needed was enough time. Now, our complexity is really easy to dissect because of evolution. There's a blueprint. We see how the blueprint is advanced through experiments, and it's just a permutation war. You run through enough babies, kill all the shitty ones, and you're going to change its genetic code and blah blah blah. It's perfectly understandable, and that's a special circumstance based on a new addition to the complexity engine. So you have to understand that sometimes the monkeys, your barrel full of monkeys, link together in such a way as they create a little machine. They create something in the blender that spins around and it catches other monkeys and locks them together and then releases them. So it's a monkey gatherer, or it only connects right hands to right hand monkeys. It does something that now creates a new circumstance, and that's what evolution, having a DNA molecule, did on planet Earth. And so chemistry could get very complicated because there wasn't just monkeys anymore with hooks on their arm. There was the little monkey machine maker, the molecule machine, that created other chemistry. That's what the DNA molecule is good at, is creating chemistry. Let's see what else is there. But of course it only can work through evolution, through billions of years that it takes to acquire our complexity, quite obviously. It's very slow, laborious, and resource consuming in terms of the torture victims being the resource consumed. But it's perfectly understandable as a mechanical function in the universe. You don't need a God to explain why the Earth is a specific distance from the Sun, and the Sun is a specific temperature, and the rest of this stuff. It's quite obvious in looking at the universe that each planet is different. Each circumstance for each thing existing will be different, and that those different circumstances will permit different things. And that sometimes, under the right conditions, yes, this will happen. But if abiogenesis didn't happen, Earth would probably be some kind of, it'd be a different color, so it wouldn't be oxygen in the atmosphere. It would just look like any other. It would look like Mars. Mars can only look like Mars. If you change distances, Mars will change. If you change intensities, Mars will change. All the planets are dependent on the circumstance. There's some theorizing about even the odds of planets surviving. For many of the, in most of the universe, they might just be rings. But anyway, plants surviving for a long period of time might be highly improbable. So I mean, Earth might have gotten blue, but probabilistically, if a lot of plants got to stage the first 500 million years in, maybe 100 out of, maybe 99 out of 100 of those potential life-sustaining planets would incur catastrophic failure. So does that mean that the one was invented by God because the 99 failed? No, obviously. So yeah, complexity is intuitively garners respect, but complexity can come out of very simple systems. I'll even bring up the stream eddy again. Stream eddies are really complicated. Each one is different again. Very strange things can go on in them, very strange patterns, but it's all very simple mechanics. It's just that it's done over and over and over. There's a ton of them, and so every now and then you get one that's doing something quite interesting. So anyway, I believe that's enough. So until the next time, and such. Yeah, I'll add a little bit on since I have to walk, so I'm carrying some stuff. Anyway, I really gotta start running. Anyway, Professor Anton, when he did make his determinism videos, he said a couple of things that just triggered thoughts in my head. And about this, the complexity of our reflexes. And this is the kind of thing where I probably should draw a picture, and we could, to better understand that all our reflexes, all our behavior is a time delay of sorts. It's like the information, as Pirro would put it, of the interactions we have. Part of it is stored in our brain, in the sense that part flies off and keeps going around and around as memories. And so we retain part of the action. So part of the action of this present moment is, I saw that rock, I recognize, certain things are being stored by my brain as I'm, there's not much storage happening while you're making a video, though. I guess I have to say that's true. You have to do more imagining to create storage, I think. So when you're outputting, like as I am now, the brain is so preoccupied creating the output, it really doesn't have any time to do the storage thing. But anyway, just to make the example, it's like the eddy in the stream or some other thing, is there's these interactions that have a real time delay to them. So the interaction begins, it builds, it corrects dust, like monkeys, it grabs other pieces of stuff, and it's flowing around in our brain, and it'll come out as an action, maybe a decade from now. So we learn pattern recognition and all that kind of stuff. These reflexive responses are set up way in advance, and it's very deterministic. Stuff you learn in your childhood life lessons you carry with you all your life, and they form your personality, your character, your reactivity. And there's nothing, so those things really are just reflections of the past. In a sense, they are the past still moving. They are like light being captured by an atom. That's kind of what the past is in our brains. The past is captured. It's still alive, still moving, still interacting in our brain. And it's just taking the side road. It's taking the scenic route. So it's taking maybe the 600-mile route, versus the 6-mile route. And so it won't show up. It'll show up very late to the party. And it'll have a whole lot of other stickers on it. And, maybe it'll go to Bangladesh for 5 years before it gets here. And so it's just a time delay. It's just the past moving slower. You know, taking a different trip through an interactive field. You know, kind of like light traveling through a gravitational field being dilated, which isn't really correct. But anyway, yeah, I just thought I'd add that because I had thought of it, and I thought it was a rather intelligent you know, way to view the past controlling us in the future. Some, you know, academics would scoff at my opining, you know, and maybe Professor Anton does that in the back of his mind sometimes, or in the front of his mind. But I think it explains the game. It's all determined by the past circumstances. It's just that some of the past circumstances hang around for a long, long time. They took more than one fork in the road. That sounds a little too slitty. This is not a too slit nonsense video. Anyway, sorry about the stream. Is awful active. We haven't had much rain. I mean, the last couple of days we've had a ton of rain all winter, but yeah, so it just seems a little aggravated for the little rain we had. But whatever, it's allowed to be. I guess up on the mountain they must have had more rain than we did. Anyway, I think that's enough. Anyway. Okay, anyway, lots of anyways. Anyway, gotta make anyway go away. Can't keep saying that word, I guess. Oh, I saw another snake today. Garter snake at the pool. What the hell happened? It's like I lifted up a rock or something. I had to move. And, garter snake. It was very aggressive. Incredibly aggressive. So I let him bite my foot a few hundred times, but I wasn't going to pick him up. He was just so aggressive. Anyway, maybe. She did look a little fat in the middle. Anyway, I explained the aggressiveness. Anyway, so yeah, just really, I've seen a ton of snakes this year. I saw more snakes already this year than I saw all of last year. Yeah, weird. Maybe it's the year. Yeah, I'll get killed by a anaconda or something. An anaconda. Yeah, an anaconda. Yeah, an anaconda will kill me. Yeah. Anyway. Oops, I said anyway again. That's probably why the snakes are after me. Anyway. Did it again, didn't I? Gee, it does come to mind. I have to fix that. So many things I have to fix. I could spend a pure year just working on me. On my environment. Anyway, sorry. I can't believe I did that. Oh. Good wood. Oh, I'm tired. Gotta get past this fatigue syndrome thing. Yeah. I don't know. It's the thyroid thing. I don't know. Yeah, I'm tripping over stuff. Anyway, you gotta stop it, Gary. Stop it. I'm an anyholic. Anywayaholic. Stop it. Hey, tell the brain. Yep. New brain. Stop doing that. Okay, there, I think I fixed it. Okay. So then, I've been a new one. So then, you really are. Oh, you people who listen to me for years, you really are. Yeah, you really have done your work. My condolences and such. Yep. Okay. What was I supposed to? So then, I will be moving on. It's not quite the same kind of a transition. Always need a transition thing. I've always had that habit. I always had to have something to say to wrap things up. And just have like some sort of automatic blah 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 blah. You know, if it's goodbye, it's just too, you know, you have to preface it with something. You know, and I don't want to say something like, oh, you're all so special, so, well, goodbye. No, I don't want to do that. Okay. And so then I will think about it and communicate with you at another moment in the past progression through its history. Yeah. And such. So forth and whatnot.